The morning lobby of AI and automation engines buzzed with activity. Victoria Blackwell, the 29-year-old CEO, strode through in her powder-pink suit, phone pressed to ear, discussing critical matters. A small girl sat quietly in the corner, drawing on white paper with colored markers. Victoria's eyes caught the child's paper, those symbols, that recursive pattern. Her blood ran cold. This was the exact algorithm threatening to bankrupt her company. She ended her call abruptly, crouched beside the girl. "Who taught you this formula?" Her voice trembled. The 7-year-old looked up innocently, then pointed across the lobby. "My daddy," she said softly, indicating the janitor mopping the hallway. Daniel Morrison pushed his mop bucket down the gleaming corridor. Another invisible presence in the corporate machine. 5 years had passed since he'd been someone important, someone whose name appeared in aerospace engineering journals, whose innovations in jet engine optimization had earned recognition across the industry. That life ended the night a drunk driver hit Sarah's car. 3 days in the ICU, holding her hand, making promises about their daughter Lily. Then nothing but silence, and a 2-year-old who kept asking when mommy would come home. The prestigious aerospace career with its 18-hour days and constant travel couldn't raise a child alone. So Daniel walked away from 6-figure salaries in corner offices, traded blueprints for bleach, equations for evening shifts. When he applied at AI and automation engines, the HR manager barely looked up, just another janitor to keep the floors clean while brilliant minds worked upstairs. His daughter Lily had inherited Sarah's delicate features and Daniel's analytical mind. At 7, she understood patterns others missed. Not because she was pushed, but because her father's world leaked into hers through bedtime stories about airflow, weekend projects, building models, quiet explanations of why things worked. She spent after-school hours in the lobby, waiting for his shift to end, surrounded by notebooks and colored markers. The security guards knew her, kept candy at their desk for her. But to everyone else, she was just the janitor's kid, sweet, quiet, invisible. Victoria Blackwell stood at the apex of a different universe. MIT graduate, youngest CEO in company history, groomed by her father's investment firm but earning every achievement through 16-hour days, and a mind that saw patterns others missed. Her current project, an AI-driven optimization system for automation engines, represented 3 years of development, $40 million in funding. The algorithm at its heart was her breakthrough, known only to her and Marcus Webb, the chief technical officer. It should revolutionize manufacturing efficiency, but instead hit an insurmountable wall. The recursive loop created inefficiencies no one could solve. 3 teams of Silicon Valley's brightest had tried and failed. Yet here, in a child's colorful drawing, was the exact formula from her private whiteboard, the one existing nowhere outside the secured development lab. Daniel's story was one of choosing love over ambition. Before Sarah's death, he'd been rising fast, youngest senior engineer at Northrop Grumman, 2 patents pending, recruiters calling weekly. His specialty was optimization algorithms for jet propulsion, the mathematics of making engines burn cleaner, fly farther, work smarter. Sarah had been a teacher, patient with his late nights, proud of his achievements. They'd bought a house in a good school district, planned for more children, drew blueprints for a workshop where he could tinker on weekends. The drunk driver who ran the red light destroyed all those plans in 3 seconds. After the funeral, holding Lily as she cried for her mother, Daniel made the only choice that mattered. His daughter needed him present, not successful. The engineering world demanded everything: travel, to conferences, nights solving problems, weekends catching up. Lily needed homework help, bedtime stories, someone who never missed a school play. So he became invisible, trading intellectual stimulation for emotional availability, professional pride for parental presence. The duplex in Riverside Heights told 2 stories simultaneously. Outside, it looked like any working-class home neat lawn. aging sedan in the driveway. Flowers Sarah had planted still blooming because Daniel couldn't bear to let them die. Inside revealed the ghost of his former life. The walls displayed technical drawings, mathematical proofs, patents framed but gathering dust. A half-built jet engine model occupied the coffee table, each component labeled in his precise handwriting. Engineering journals formed neat stacks beside textbooks he couldn't throw away. This wasn't decoration but preservation, like keeping Sarah's coffee mug exactly where she'd left it. Every evening after Lily went to bed, Daniel would sit among these remnants, solving problems that no longer mattered, maintaining skills no one valued, preparing for a return he knew would never come. Victoria's world operated on different principles: power lunches, board meetings, quarterly projections. Her penthouse apartment overlooked the city, its minimalist design reflecting a life streamlined for success. No family photos, no sentimental clutter, just clean lines and expensive art she'd bought because a decorator said it showed sophistication. Her father called weekly to discuss market trends, never asking about happiness. Her mother sent invitations to charity galas, where eligible men might appear. Victoria attended, smiled, networked, then returned alone to her pristine space, opening her laptop to work until exhaustion finally brought sleep. The algorithm problem had consumed her recent weeks. If unsolved, it would trigger contract penalties, investor lawsuits, possibly bankruptcy. The formula Lily had drawn wasn't just similar to their work, it was the next iteration, the breakthrough they'd been seeking, written in purple marker by a child who should understand none of it. That evening, Victoria sat in her office, the child's drawing beside her keyboard, trying to reconcile the impossible. Marcus Webb faced her, sweating despite the air conditioning. "I need you to understand," she said, voice sharp. "This formula exists in exactly two places: my private notes and our secured server. Either you've breached protocol, or we have a bigger problem." Marcus shook his head desperately. "Victoria, I swear on my mother's life. I haven't discussed this with anyone. My wife doesn't even know what project I'm working on." She studied him carefully. Marcus was ambitious, sometimes reckless with expense accounts, definitely having an affair with someone in accounting, but he wasn't stupid enough to leak trade secrets that would destroy his own stock options. "Then explain," she said slowly, "how a 7-year-old child wrote our proprietary algorithm while sitting in our lobby." Marcus had no answer. The security footage she'd reviewed showed nothing suspicious. Lily arrived daily at 3:30, did homework, drew pictures, left with her father at 11. No unauthorized access, no suspicious contacts. Just a little girl with markers and paper, somehow possessing knowledge that shouldn't exist outside a locked laboratory. The decision to visit Daniel's home surprised even Victoria. CEOs didn't make house calls to janitors, but this transcended corporate hierarchy. She needed to understand how her most guarded secret had appeared in a child's artwork. The drive to Riverside Heights took her through neighborhoods she'd never seen, past strip malls and aging schools, into an America that existed parallel to her Tesla and stock options. The duplex sat on a quiet street, porch light on, toys scattered on the lawn. Victoria parked, questioning her judgment. What if this was elaborate corporate espionage? What if Daniel Morrison was more than he seemed? She knocked anyway, driven by desperation and curiosity. Daniel answered still in his work uniform, exhaustion evident in his posture. His surprise at seeing her shifted quickly to concern, then careful neutrality. "Miss Blackwell?" The question carried layers. "Why are you here? What do you want? What has Lily done?" Victoria found herself unexpectedly nervous. "Mr. Morrison, we need to talk about your daughter's drawing." The living room shattered Victoria's expectations. Yes, the furniture was second-hand, the carpet worn, but the walls told a different story. Technical blueprints covered every surface, equations flowing across whiteboards, models of engines in various stages of assembly. This wasn't a janitor's home but an engineer's workshop, frozen in time like a museum of abandoned ambition. Daniel noticed her shock. "You want to know about the formula?" he said quietly. Not a question, but recognition. Lily appeared in the doorway, clutching a stuffed rabbit, watching with intelligent eyes. "Lily, honey, go finish your reading. I'll check it later." The child nodded, disappearing down the hall. Daniel gestured to an armchair. "Coffee?" Victoria shook her head, still absorbing the room. "You're an engineer." Again, not a question. Daniel's smile was bitter. Was. Past tense. 5 years past tense. He settled into his chair, the story spilling out Sarah's death, the choice to raise Lily, the transformation from respected engineer to invisible janitor. The patterns Lily drew aren't your exact formula, but they're related to work I did in aerospace. Recursive optimization for fuel efficiency. She's been around these concepts since she could walk. Victoria processed this information, mind racing through implications. "Mr. Morrison, Daniel, the formula your daughter drew could solve a $40 million problem. We've had 3 teams working on it for months." Daniel shrugged. "She sees me working sometimes, after she's supposed to be asleep. Kids absorb more than we realize." Victoria leaned forward. "I need your help, officially. As a consultant." Daniel's expression hardened. "I chose this life. Miss Blackwell, Lily needs stability. Not a father who's never home." Victoria wanted to argue, but saw the resolution in his eyes. This man had sacrificed everything for his daughter. Her $40 million meant nothing against that devotion. She stood to leave, then paused. "If you change your mind." She left her card on the coffee table, beside the engine model. Daniel didn't pick it up. The next weeks brought crisis. Someone leaked news of the algorithm problem to TechCrunch. AI and automation engines facing bankruptcy over failed algorithm, read the headline. Stock prices plummeted 30% in 2 days. Competitors circled like vultures, spreading rumors of hostile takeovers. Victoria worked 20-hour days, trying to maintain confidence while her CFO updated her on their dwindling runway. Board members called emergency meetings, demanding solutions. Marcus Webb presented increasingly desperate fixes that didn't work. The engineering teams grew frustrated, then defeatist. Meanwhile, Daniel continued his nightly routine, mopping floors, emptying trash, invisible to the panicking executives rushing past. He heard fragments of conversation, understood the magnitude of their problem, recognized the errors in their approach. But he'd made his choice. Lily mattered more than algorithms. The media frenzy intensified. Tech darlings fall from grace, announced the Wall Street Journal. Victoria's father called, not with support, but criticism of her leadership. Former employees gave anonymous interviews, suggesting incompetence. The board scheduled a vote of no confidence. Victoria stood at her office window, watching the city lights, wondering if this was how empire felt as Rome burned. Her phone buzzed another reporter seeking comment. She ignored it, returning to the whiteboard where she'd drawn and redrawn the formula, seeking the insight that remained elusive. The cleaned floors reflected her failure back at her. That's when she noticed Daniel in the doorway, holding his mop, but not using it. Studying her board with an expression she recognized an engineer, seeing a solvable problem. "You're approaching it wrong," he said quietly. Victoria spun around, hope and skepticism warring in her chest. The recursive loop isn't the problem. It's the solution. You're trying to eliminate it when you should be amplifying it. He set down his mop, picked up a marker, began drawing. His hands moved with forgotten confidence, equations flowing across the board. Victoria watched, mesmerized. This wasn't a janitor explaining something he'd overheard. This was expertise, deep and intuitive. The kind that came from years of high-level work. Here, Daniel stepped back. Run this modification through your simulator. Victoria grabbed her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. The simulation that had failed hundreds of times suddenly flowed, numbers aligning, efficiency metrics soaring. "Oh my God," she whispered. Daniel was already picking up his mop. "Wait," Victoria called. "I need you on this project. Name your price." Daniel paused at the door. "I already told you. I'm not that person anymore." He left her standing there, solution on the board, salvation within reach but dependent on a man who'd chosen mops over mathematics. The conversation that changed everything happened in the cafeteria at 2 in the morning. Victoria found Daniel eating a sandwich, Lily asleep in the booth beside him, homework scattered on the table. "She still hasn't finished her science project," Daniel explained, brushing hair from his daughter's face. Victoria sat across from them, exhausted beyond pretense. "The board's going to fire me tomorrow if I can't present a solution." Daniel continued eating. "You have the solution. I drew it on your board." Victoria's frustration boiled over. "I need more than drawings. I need someone who understands it, can implement it, defend it to investors." Daniel looked at his sleeping daughter. "What about Lily? Who watches her if I'm in meetings? Who helps with homework if I'm coding until midnight?" Victoria saw the weight he carried, the impossible choice between ambition and love. "What if," she said slowly, "we made it work for both of you?" The next 72 hours blurred together. Daniel worked from a terminal they set up in a conference room, Lily doing homework beside him. Victoria brought dinner, helped Lily with her science project while Daniel coded. Marcus Webb initially resented this janitor's involvement, until he saw the elegant solutions emerging. The engineering team gathered around Daniel's screen, watching him solve problems they'd struggled with for months. His approach was different aerospace principles applied to automation, cross-disciplinary insights they'd never considered. Lily watched her father transform, saw him become the person he'd hidden for 5 years. "Daddy's smart," she told Victoria during a break. "He just pretends he's not." Victoria felt something crack in her chest, a recognition of all the ways people made themselves small for love. The breakthrough came at 4 in the morning on the third day. Daniel had been working for 18 straight hours. Lily curled asleep on the conference room couch. Victoria dozed in a chair, waking when Daniel shouted, "Got it." The main screen displayed the algorithm running perfectly, efficiency metrics exceeding projections by 40%. The room erupted in exhausted celebration. Engineers who'd ignored Daniel for 2 years shook his hand, slapped his back. Marcus Webb actually smiled. Victoria felt relief so profound she thought she might cry. Instead, she did something more surprising. She hugged Daniel, a spontaneous expression of gratitude that shocked them both. He smelled like coffee and whiteboard markers, his arms hesitant before returning the embrace. The room went silent, everyone staring. They separated quickly, faces flushed, the moment hanging between them like a question neither knew how to answer. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 that morning. Victoria stood before 12 skeptical faces, her career balanced on a knife's edge. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce our algorithm problem is solved." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the room. She displayed the metrics, the successful simulations, the implementation timeline. "How?" demanded Harold Whitman, the lead investor. Victoria had prepared for this moment. "We found an expert who saw what we'd missed. A former aerospace engineer whose cross-disciplinary approach provided the breakthrough." She didn't mention Daniel was their janitor. Some truths were too complicated for board meetings. The demonstration convinced them. Stock prices rebounded, investors renewed funding, the vote of no confidence was tabled indefinitely. Victoria had won, but standing in her empty office afterward, she felt oddly hollow. Success, without someone to share it with, was just expensive silence. The weeks following the crisis brought unexpected changes. Daniel refused the consultant position Victoria offered, but he agreed to review problems occasionally, after hours, with Lily present. These sessions became something more: Victoria teaching Lily about business, while Daniel solved technical issues, the three of them forming an unlikely team. Victoria found herself looking forward to these evenings more than board meetings or investor calls. She brought pizza, helped Lily with homework, argued with Daniel about optimization strategies. The conference room became their space, separate from corporate hierarchy. Lily started calling her Aunt Vicky, a name that would have horrified Victoria months ago but now made her smile. She began keeping toys in her office, children's books in her briefcase. Her secretary noticed but said nothing, recognizing a transformation she didn't understand. Daniel noticed changes too. Victoria laughed more, worried less about her appearance, stayed late not for work but for their informal sessions. She traded some designer suits for comfortable clothes, started wearing her hair down instead of in severe buns. He caught himself watching her explain spreadsheets to Lily, patient and kind in ways that contradicted her corporate reputation. The attraction was mutual and problematic. She was the CEO. He was technically still the janitor, the power dynamic impossible to ignore. Yet in their conference room bubble, titles mattered less than the conversation, the shared focus on helping Lily understand her math homework, the comfortable silence when they worked side by side. Other employees started noticing, whispering about the CEO spending evenings with maintenance staff. But Victoria didn't care. For the first time in her life, she'd found something more valuable than success. The moment things shifted from professional to personal happened on Lily's 8th birthday. Daniel had planned a small party at home, just a few school friends, cake, simple decorations. Victoria arrived with an armful of presents, having cleared her schedule without hesitation. She helped set up, served cake, played party games with 7-year-olds who didn't know or care she controlled a billion-dollar company. After the guests left, while Daniel cleaned up, Victoria and Lily sat on the porch, watching fireflies. "I wish you could be here all the time," Lily said quietly. Victoria's heart contracted. "Me too, sweetheart." Daniel overheard from the doorway, saw his daughter's hand in Victoria's, recognized a completion their broken family had been missing. That night, after Lily was asleep, they sat in his kitchen, drinking coffee, not talking about algorithms or companies, but about Sarah, about loneliness, about the shapes love took when you weren't looking for it. The first kiss happened 2 weeks later, in the conference room where they'd solved the algorithm. Victoria had stayed late helping Lily with a school project about women in business. Daniel walked them to Victoria's car, Lily running ahead to chase a butterfly. "Thank you," he said, meaning more than just the evening's help. Victoria looked up at him, seeing not the janitor or the hidden engineer, but the man who'd chosen love over glory, who'd made himself small so his daughter could grow. "Daniel," she started, but he was already leaning down, the kiss soft and questioning. She answered by pulling him closer. Months of careful distance, collapsing in an instant. When they separated, Lily stood nearby, grinning. "Finally," she exclaimed. "I thought you two would never figure it out." They laughed, embarrassed and happy. A makeshift family forming in a corporate parking lot. The relationship faced immediate challenges. Victoria's father threatened to withdraw investment funding if she continued slumming with the help. The board expressed concern about the optics. Daniel's own pride struggled with the economic disparity, her penthouse versus his duplex, her designer everything versus his Target clearance rack. They fought about money when she tried to pay for things, about time when her CEO duties interrupted family moments, about the future when neither knew how to bridge their different worlds. But they also found unexpected harmony. Victoria discovered peace in Daniel's simple life, in bedtime stories and homework battles, in Saturday mornings, making pancakes. Daniel rediscovered intellectual stimulation through Victoria's strategic challenges, their late-night discussions about business and technology. Lily thrived with two adults focused on her growth, her confidence blooming like the flowers her mother had planted. The scandal broke 6 months later. A photographer caught them at Lily's school play, Daniel's arm around Victoria, looking like what they were, a family. CEO's secret romance with Janitor screamed the headlines. The stock price dipped, board members called emergency meetings, social media exploded with opinions ranging from romantic to predatory. Victoria faced the board with steel in her spine. My personal life doesn't affect my ability to run this company. Our profits are up 40%. The algorithm has 3 new patents. We're expanding internationally. If you want to fire me for finding happiness, explain that to shareholders. The board backed down, barely. Daniel faced his own battles, former colleagues who'd ignored him suddenly wanting connection, job offers from competitors trying to poach him, people questioning his motives. He declined everything, returning each night to his mop and bucket, choosing invisibility over the spotlight Victoria's world demanded. The proposal happened where it all began, in the lobby where Lily had drawn the formula. Daniel had saved for months, buying a simple solitaire that seemed insignificant compared to Victoria's usual jewelry. But he knew her now, understood that she valued meaning over carrots. He proposed during a normal evening, Lily doing homework, Victoria reviewing reports beside them. "I can't offer you much," he said, kneeling beside her chair. "No yacht, no mansion, no charity galas. Just a man who fixes things, a daughter who loves you, and a promise that we'll always choose each other over everything else." Victoria's yes came through tears, Lily jumping up to hug them both, security guards discreetly wiping their eyes. The ring was perfect precisely because it wasn't, because it represented choice rather than obligation, love rather than merger. They married 8 months later in Daniel's backyard, transformed with string lights and flowers from Sarah's garden. Victoria wore a simple dress she'd bought off the rack, Daniel in a suit borrowed from his brother. Lily served as maid of honor, ring bearer, and flower girl, taking her duties seriously. The guest list mixed billionaire board members with school teachers, aerospace engineers with night shift janitors. Victoria's father attended reluctantly, surprised to find genuine happiness in his daughter's face. The ceremony was brief, the vows personal. Daniel promised to support her ambitions while keeping her grounded. Victoria promised to value their family over any algorithm or profit margin. Lily interrupted to promise she'd help them both remember what mattered. The reception featured store-bought cake and a playlist from Daniel's phone. But the joy was authentic. Marcus Webb, slightly drunk, admitted Daniel was the smartest engineer he'd ever met. The security guards formed an honor guard with their flashlights. As they danced in the small backyard, Victoria whispered, "From that first question about the formula, I should have known you'd change everything." Daniel pulled her closer. "Lily changed everything. We just finally caught up." The epilogue wrote itself over the following years. Victoria remained CEO, but restructured her priorities, working from home when possible, never missing Lily's important events. Daniel officially joined the company as Chief Innovation Officer, his janitorial past becoming legend among employees. He insisted on keeping his old uniform in his office, a reminder of choices and sacrifices. Lily grew up brilliant and grounded, understanding both struggle and privilege, equally comfortable in boardrooms and backyard barbecues. She attended MIT like Victoria, studied aerospace engineering like Daniel, but chose her own path, environmental technology, solving different problems for a different generation. At her graduation, she thanked her parents for showing her that success meant nothing without love, that formulas and algorithms were just tools, that the most important calculations were the ones that brought people together. Victoria and Daniel had 2 more children, boys who inherited their mother's business acumen and their father's technical genius. The family lived in a house that split the difference between penthouse and duplex, comfortable but not ostentatious, in a neighborhood with good schools and neighbors who didn't care about stock prices. Daniel's workshop occupied the garage, filled with projects he and the children built together. Victoria's office overlooked the garden where Sarah's flowers still bloomed, carefully tended because some things shouldn't be forgotten. They argued about normal things, whose turn to drive carpool, whether the boys were old enough for smartphones, how to balance 3 college tuitions. But every evening, they returned to each other, to homework and dinner conversations, to the formula they discovered together. Love multiplied by sacrifice, divided by ego, equals family. Years later, when business students studied Victoria Blackwell's leadership, they focused on the algorithm crisis, the dramatic turnaround, the technical innovation. They missed the real story: how a janitor's daughter's drawing had revealed not just a mathematical solution but a human one. How a CEO learned that power meant nothing without purpose. How a widowed engineer discovered that hiding your gifts served no one. The formula Lily had drawn that morning in the lobby wasn't just about recursive loops or optimization patterns. It was about the recursion of love, how it circled back when you least expected it. Optimizing not efficiency but existence itself. The company thrived, the family flourished, and somewhere, Sarah smiled, knowing her flowers weren't the only things still blooming in the garden Daniel tended with such care.